Okay, good morning, everybody. I trust that you all are doing well. My name is Lorraine Botha. I'm the chairperson for the Standing Committee on Education. I shall now ask members to all introduce themselves for the record.
Good morning, Chairperson Regan Allen.
Good morning, Chairperson Ferlin Christians.
Good morning, Chair, Ms. Suli Kama.
Good morning, Chair, Member Brantes.
Good morning, Chairperson. It's Killian Postman.
Thank you. And with us in the meeting, we have our Senior Procedural Officer, Ben Daza. Mr. Ben Daza, welcome. And then our very capable Procedural Officer, Ms. Wasima Hassan Musa. I shall now ask the department to please introduce yourself. Anybody who wants to start?
Good morning, Chairperson. Paul Swart, Good morning, Chairperson Harun Mohammed.
Good morning, Chairperson Tina Singh.
Good morning, Chairperson Leslie McLean.
Good morning, Chairperson Don Hari Prasad, Director Curriculum.
Can I check, is that the team for the WCED? I take it as affirmative. That is the team.
Alan Meyer didn't introduce himself, but he is in the meeting.
Good morning. There we see him.
Good morning, Chairperson. Good morning, members.
Thank you. Members, in terms of the apologies I received from our alternative member on this committee, Member Makamba Pocha, and I also have received an apology from the Minister Schaefer and from the HOD Schroeder. Then in regard to the rules of engagement for this meeting, members, I shall ask you to please all mute yourselves and also mute your camera. And when you have the opportunity to speak, you may use your video camera, you may switch that on, and also then unmute yourself. And then immediately after you have taken your turn to speak, please please mute yourself thereafter. Then in terms of the chat bar, please use that for points of order, or use the raise your hand function. I will then acknowledge and give you an opportunity to speak. And I am just checking now. I see that Member Sayed has joined us. Member, for the record, introduce yourself.
Very much, Chairperson. My name is Mohammed Khalid Sayed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And then members, our purpose for this meeting today is the engagement with the Western Cape Education Department to brief us on the National Senior Certificate results, and then also the pass rate within the Western Cape and school readiness and learner transport. So I have seen that there are 3 different presentations. And I'm not sure who will be the lead in starting with the first presentation. WCED, you must please just give me an indication. I will then, members, ask the WCED to do all 3 presentations. I shall ask members to jot down your questions as the presentations are flighted, and then we'll do our engagement with the department on the presentations that we have received. I trust that that for you members is in order, and the department. I take it as yes.
Chair, yes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Singh, Mr. Bosman. And then we have an hour to get through the presentations. Thereafter will be our engagement with the department on the presentations. Thank you very much for those members of the public who have joined the platform, as well as media who might have joined the platform. And thank you to our very capable IT staff who is assisting us with this standing committee meeting. With that said, Ms. Singh, I am giving over to you for the first presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, members. Good morning to the audience as well. I will commence with these slides talking to the registration numbers. In this first slide, you see the registration numbers from 2016 up to 2020. What is significant here is the stability in the system in as far as the enrollment numbers. So whereas you do see a slight dip in 2017, there's stability in the registration 2018-2019, just peaking just above the 1,000 mark in the 2020 examination. Now, what is peculiar about the 2020 exam? This was the 7th year in which the CAPS was introduced, and candidates writing the NSC exam was examined in terms of the curriculum statements. The cohort entered grade 1 in 2009, and 54,785 full-time candidates across the 449 exam centers registered. Now, whilst this number has registered, I will show you in the slides thereafter how the numbers have slightly declined in 2020 with the numbers that actually wrote. So the class of 2020 was impacted in terms of the progression and promotion policy. Progression meaning that the candidates could not spend more than 4 years in a phase. And in terms of policy, they move with the age cohort. The multiple exam opportunity, Chair, that was introduced in 2016 was discontinued in 2020. With the multiple exam opportunity, candidates had a 2-year period in which to write the exam if they did not meet certain criteria. And the criteria is if they did not fare well in their preparatory examination. The introduction of sign language is actually quite important as well, because we see over the years that the number of learners now taking sign language, home language, is increasing. In 2020, we had 21 candidates who took home language as sign language. The specialization in the technology subjects in 2018 is also growing, and we see more and more candidates wanting to take civil technology broken up into civil service, construction, woodwork, and this bears well for the after work opportunities for candidates as well in terms of the practical subjects. The offering of 2 question papers in accounting and business studies, it happened for the first time in 2020, where we had an accounting paper 1 and accounting paper 2, business studies paper 1 and paper 2. But I think this also was well received by candidates because they had lesser content for each of the question papers in order to prepare for the examination. And of course, we saw the abolishment of the designated list of subjects in 2018, and this creates more opportunities for candidates who can now achieve 50% and more in any 4 subjects, excluding life orientation, in order to enter higher education. Moving on, in terms of the preparation for the NSC examination, just to highlight the magnitude of the exam, we had 137 national question papers that were written. And in terms of the printing, we went into a lot of printing in terms of the images and individual question papers. And here I want to also mention that we had to replace at short notice about 6 question papers, which placed the plant under tremendous pressure, but we were able to do the printing at last minute and provide the papers to the schools. Now, we do in the Western Cape make use of a smart lock system. And for the audience out there, the smart lock system is a system which only allows a principal to open a question paper an hour before the commencement of the examination. So the system only is designed in such a way to open at a particular time, at a particular venue, and for a particular session. The monitoring as part of our model in terms of ensuring the security of the question paper as well as protecting the integrity of the exam. We had 512 exam centers, which includes your SCs, your senior certificate centers, where monitoring took place, and monitoring took place at all districts by all district officials as well as specialized ex-WCD officials who were trained for this particular purpose. So all in all, we had to ensure that the exam was conducted in a credible manner, and lots of systems and processes had to be put in place to include the monitoring over the expanded number of exam centers that we found ourselves administering the exams at. Just to move on with the preparation, the Western Cape Education Department utilizes community members to invigilate the exam, but this is done in conjunction with the teachers at the school. The advantage of such a system is that you're not leaving the exam solely with the teachers to invigilate. So by introducing the objectivity of the community members, you actually ensuring the credibility of the exam. Now, due to COVID, the training was not done face-to-face, but annually we do training of school principals and invigilators, but we found ourselves adhering to the platform. We used the MS Teams, and that training went very well. I'm just going to go on, but the rest of the information indicates who had to attend the training session. The marking of the NSC examination, due to the COVID protocols and the restrictions and the numbers at a marking center, we found ourselves in a position where we had to make use of more marking centers. Hence, we expanded and introduced 3 more marking centers, but this went very well and was well received by the markers and by the union members as well, who visited the marking centers to ensure that all protocols were observed. It's quite important to mention that screening took place on a daily basis, that markers were not allowed that showed any symptoms or indicated positive or yes response to either of the symptoms, and all precautions was taken for those also staying at the hostels. While we found ourselves in a position to mark over a longer period than usual, the usual marking period expands to about 10 to 12 days, at the most 15 days. In 2020, the marking took place in January, and we used approximately 17, 18 days for the marking. Extra precautions were taken, but however, we found ourselves in a situation where about 170 teachers or markers were infected during this time, and we had to replace markers at short notice. Given the pool of markers, we were able to do that, and we were able to successfully complete our marking well within the time allocated as well. The WCD performance in the examination, as I've indicated, 54,000 candidates registered for the exam, with 51,633 who actually wrote. Now, the overall pass rate, as we all are aware, decreased from 82.3 in 2019 to 79.9, giving you a decrease of 2.4%. Whilst we are very disappointed with the decrease, we take into account the fact that of all the provinces, the Western Cape had the lowest decrease in terms of the pass rate from 2019. So we do celebrate that, but at the same time, we want to ensure that in preparation for 2021, all measures are taken to address the reasons why there was a decrease. So much research will still be done in this area, and in terms of curriculum delivery, we will address the areas where we've identified some gaps in the system. The increase in bachelor's degree, we celebrate that because despite the drop in the pass rate, we see an increase, a slight increase in bachelor's degree achievement. We also had the highest maths and physical science pass rates, and 4 districts achieved pass rates over 80%, and we celebrate that as well, with Metro North also achieving the highest bachelor's degree access of 52%. The overall pass rate in the Elson schools also increased, and that is also reason to celebrate. And 60 of the 449 schools achieved 100% pass rate. This also compares favorably to the previous years, although there are some schools in the 100% category that have declined in the pass rate. 89 schools maintained a pass rate of 95% and more for the past 5 years. Moving on to the overall results as compared to 2016, 17, 18 and 19. Here we show you exactly the numbers over the years and how they compare, showing you the numbers who correctly wrote the full exam. So we have more learners that wrote in 2020. We do have more learners that achieved the bachelor's degree with a slight increase in the percentage. And with the increase in the achievement for the bachelor's, we see a decrease in the achievement of diploma and your highest certificate. The nice thing is that we don't have any candidates with the NSC pass that do not have access to higher education. And I think this also bears well for the WCED. The pass rate over the years, this is just a graphical representation, and it is something that, we can reflect on. But again, it just shows the pass rates over the years. What is significant here? If you look at 2011, so if I take it from 2011, you're seeing an 82.89 pass rate, quite stable then into 2012, 82.76. And 2013, a peak in terms of the pass rate. Then again, you're going down into a dip in 2014, 2015, and 2016 being the third year of the cycle, then you're seeing a peak. So I'm not sure, and I cannot explain this. Yet again, we need some research into the stability, the dips and the peaks, because after 2019, again, you're seeing a slight dip, and I'm not sure what the trend will be in 2021. Whether it is a trend, one needs to look at those stats quite carefully. The summary, it's the same information that I've presented in the previous slide, just showing you over the years then, including from 2008 right up to 2020. The higher education access, this is comparative. You can look at the flow in terms of the access to bachelor's, diploma and higher certificate, showing you that in 2020 there's an increase in the bachelor's, but slight decrease in your diploma and the higher certificate as well. The quality, if we were to compare with the rest of the provinces, we're showing you there that the WCED in comparison with the other provinces have performed very well. So Gauteng has achieved a 45.1% in terms of bachelor degree access, and the Western Cape then second with 43.8%. Free State then with 40.4%, indicating to you that the quality of passes in the Western Cape is much to be celebrated, and we can only work on the numbers that we have to take it forward, paying particular attention to those candidates who are probably sitting at the borderline in terms of a bachelor. And I think more in terms of Mr. Mayor's presentation and Mr. Mohammed coming in with curriculum, we need to look at that space. Again, we're taking the dropout rate across provinces and looking at the pass rate based on the throughput in terms of all provinces. So if you look at the Western Cape in particular, if you were to base the pass rate on the throughput of the candidates, you will notice that the Western Cape does come out on the top in terms of a pass rate. If you look at the throughput, if you look at the dropout, the Western Cape also has performed very well in terms of its retention at the grade 10 to 12 level. Looking at the national quintiles, we show you the quintile schools in each of the categories, with the quintile 1 schools being the least in the Western Cape and your quintile 5 schools being the most. What is significant here is that I will show you in the next slides the performance of the various quintiles and how the numbers talk to each other. So looking at the performance per quintile, and I want you to look specifically at your quintile 1 schools, we know that they are the least number of schools in the Western Cape. But what is good here in terms of the achievement, you seeing the pass rate, there's a slight decrease, but there is a decrease overall in the pass rate. But what you can actually celebrate is the increase in the bachelors. So if you look at the bachelors in 2018, 24.2%, 2019, 28.6% increase there. And also now in 2020, you're seeing an increase from 28.6 to 29.7. It's a 1.1% increase in bachelor attainment, which you do not see in the other quintiles. So I think the one thing that stands out here is that bachelor increase, also indicating that there is much achievement in terms of the quality of passes. The candidates per district, if you look at this, it tells you that most of your candidates are coming from the Metro East. And if you reflect at the Metro East district, you're seeing that the circumstances, the social and the economical context is very challenging. And this is where all our efforts needs to go in terms of future programs, in terms of support to learners. And therefore, because of the context, you can understand that the challenges that we faced in 2020 had affected this cohort to a larger extent than the other learners in the other districts. Going to the district performance, we show you the performance per district, and in each of the district, you will be able to see the 2019 as compared to the 2020. In all cases, you are seeing some kind of stability or a decrease. Metro Central shows you slight increase in the pass rate, slight increase in the bachelor attainment as well, with the rest of the districts showing a slight decrease in the pass rate. And if you look at Metro East, there is a big drop in the pass rate as well as a slight decrease in the bachelors. But if you look at the amount of the number or the point of pass rate decrease in Metro East, you are looking at approximately 4 point whatever in there. But if you look at the bachelor, you're seeing a slighter decrease in the bachelor attainment, which means then also talking to the quality, there is retention of quality throughout the system. The pass rate distribution of schools, in terms of 2016 to 2020, the 449 schools that we offered the full-time candidates exam, you will see that number of schools with the 100% pass rate is sitting at 60 compared to the 69 of 2019. So in each of those categories, you are able to compare the stats and you're able to compare it to previous years. We must indicate that the number of schools with the pass rate lower than 60, we're not happy. There is a huge increase there and we need to address the situation. Performance in maths, we've showed you the increase in the performance of mathematics. It's quite significant, especially at the 80% level, to see that the distinctions have increased from 6.7 to 10.1. There's also an increase in terms of the 50% level from 36.9 to 39.8. Moving on to physical science as well, we celebrate the distinctions at the 80% range. However, at the 50%, we see a decrease there in terms of 46.2 to 42.9. I think this is a slide that most people were interested in, and we show you the various pass rates and we show you how the performance as changed if you were to remove the progress candidates from the system. So if we remove the progress candidates from the system, we would have had an 82.9% pass rate compared to the 79.9% pass rate. So the impact of the progress candidates is quite significant, but of the progress candidates, of the 2,730 that wrote, 55 of those candidates had actually achieved a bachelor's degree. Now, had they not been given this opportunity, they would not have achieved this and would not have been able to enter higher education. So I think the provision for the progress candidate has been well received, and we hope to focus more attention on this category of learners going forward. 2016 to 2020, it's the same data that we show to you in terms of the 2% bachelor achievement in terms of the 2020 results. Progress candidates performance, here again, we repeat the same thing, but showing you the category in terms of the bachelor's diploma and the IS certificate. Now, once the examinations are written and in terms of all the efforts that have gone into the system, there's a lot of feedback that goes to the districts and schools. Here we are highlighting some of the major feedback in terms of written reports and stats, where we supply the district results in terms of the school-based assessment as well as the examination result, which schools can reflect on per subject in order to compare what was the achievement of candidates in the school-based assessment and whether there is a correlation between the school-based assessment and the examination marks. The problem, the one challenge we picked up here is that sometimes some schools are quite strict in terms of the school-based assessment, and you would find candidates would perform slightly lower than the examination mark, actual exam mark. But on the other hand, you would find some schools are generous with the school-based assessment, while this very same candidates perform slightly lower in the examination mark. But studying this data is quite critical because it gives you an indication of which schools need to focus on the school-based adjustment of the school-based assessment marks. Now, the subject, district and school data analysis and the publication report we send to districts as well as to schools. The WCD captures marks in terms of the question by question analysis. In other words, we take the question paper and we look at the candidates, how they performed in each of the questions on a particular question paper. What this does, it gives you a sense of which were the questions that were poorly performed across the section at a particular school and across all schools or across the entire district and across the province. We compare the results from the school to the district to the province to national to give us an indication of probably which are the questions that are most challenging. And I think here the curriculum would come in terms of teacher development, because highlighting the questions where candidates perform poorly is important because it gives you an idea as to which topics pose the most challenge in the classroom. And these are sections that either need to be retaught or more attention needs to go into the teaching and assessing of these sections. But we do also provide overall performance and detailed analysis, which is quite important for comparison purposes. And I think the written reports by chief markers and internal mods to indicate how candidates performed in a particular question is also very informative. Colleagues, I'll now invite Mr. Mohammed to talk to the rest of the slides. This is the last one I will present and come in at the end. In preparation for the May-June exam, which commences on the 24th of May, we've already commenced with our remarking and rechecking. It's part of the appeals process, and that will then conclude on the 10th of or had concluded on the 10th of March, and that was yesterday. So we're busy finalizing the numbers of remarks and rechecks that we will take to a marking center from the 19th to the 21st of March. The candidates will be notified by the 13th of April whether they were successful in terms of obtaining an I achievement, in terms of they pass, 2020 pass, and the registration for the end of the year exam will also conclude on 15th of March. The NSC registration for the June exam, that has been extended to the 31st of March. And we will likely extract the registration information post the 31st of March. Now, given that the May-June exam is an open exam in principle, because we do not have a supplementary exam in February, March, we do envisage that we will get a larger group of learners registering. But we know from previous experience that whilst we have a larger number, and we may expect in the region of 25,000, even 30,000 learners registering, the turnout rate in this exam is normally between 50 and 60%. So we have a number of candidates who register but who do not pitch for the exam. Mr. Mohammed, do you want to come in?
Thank you very much, Ms. Singh. Good morning, Chairperson, members and members of the audience. I'm just going to introduce the 5 key thrusts that we've identified to address the results that we observe. The first one deals with educators, and there's an intention and a plan to address the pedagogical content knowledge and assessment practices to improve them. The second one deals with learner support, a differentiated learner support intervention targeting the marginalized and talented. The third deals with the improvement of school management team, curriculum management at schools. The fourth one deals with increasing learner participation and performance in what we're calling the STEAM Max subjects, which is increase in participation in mathematics, science, agriculture, and vocational subjects. And the fifth thrust is to strengthen the integration of ICT support for teaching and learning. Mr. Hariprasad, the director for FET, will continue with some of the detail of the plan. Over to you, Mr. Hariprasad.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairperson and colleagues. Next slide, please. We looked at the program for FET in a much more strategic way. And like those 5 thrusts that my Chief Director Harun just mentioned earlier, that forms the basis for us to be able to direct our energies and efforts and resources to enable us to be able to make impact in the system. It is critical that we need to understand who we're dealing with, and therefore a significant amount of effort is being placed in profiling the class of 2021, in identifying both teachers and learners. In the main, let's talk about learners. We're looking at profiling the class because we have for the first time, a significant progression rate of approximately almost 7 or 8% more learners progressing into grade 10, 11, and 12, which poses a great risk, and therefore we've identified the importance of profiling the class of 2021 to enable us to be able to direct our differentiated support program to the learners. We've also profiled the teachers because we have a number of teachers that are at risk. Some of them are serially underperforming, meaning that every year annually they don't produce good results. But at the same time, we have a large number of teachers that are unqualified and are teaching the subject. We have some teachers that are teaching the subject for the first time as novice teachers. And therefore, it's important that our support program actually is a differentiated one. So we've conducted a detailed analysis and using all of the instruments and tools that we've had to enable us to be able to ensure that we have actually, enabled the system to identify what the core challenges are with the view to be able to address them. We wanted to also indicate that our the differentiated progress. Sorry, the slide is very small, so I can't even see it. What we've done is basically, in analysis, identified all of the poorly performing schools per subject. And so as a result, differentiating the categories of schools per subject to enable us to be able to make a sort of a support program to the schools to enable us to ensure that we do not target all schools or paint all schools with the same brush. So in other words, certain schools will be on the radar for subject advisors and or curriculum planners to be able to support them. We went through a comprehensive effort over the last year, and I think one of the things that we've been lauded for and praised for was that we started responding to the pandemic very early. And what we've done is we actually prepared weekly lessons, and we're currently busy with the lessons for the first term. For the first time in the Western Cape, we'll have weekly lessons for all grade 10, 11, and 12 in all subjects, in all grades. And what is important is that these weekly lessons have changed their pedagogical approach, given the context of the pandemic, that we've actually infused in it design elements of self-directed learning, which increases the chances of learners taking accountability for their own learning while at home. Because many schools are using different timetabling models, modeling, etc. And as a result, we don't want learners to realize that when they're not at school, that no learning could take place. So we advise that you look at all of these lessons are available on the e-portal. And what we've also done is we secured a substantial budget to ensure that the schools print these lessons and provide them to the learners. The other major area that we focused on in terms of our system performance is that we actually looking at the curriculum is designed in such a way that if you look at it, it has fundamental content, the core concepts that articulate in terms of the phase. So you get a concept or a content area that is being introduced. It is in a grade, it then gets developed in another grade, and it's expected to be shown evidence of at an advanced level. So what we've done, we had a comprehensive development program with our teachers to enable them to understand the design elements of the CAPS curriculum with a view to be able to get them to realize and understand the important areas in which they would be able to focus on, given the context of the pandemic and other challenges. We're looking at a very important component of the operational matters. Sorry, you need to just go back. I just want to quickly speak to 2 or more points. What all of this leads to is the fact that we have what we call subject support strategies for every subject, which will eventually then become a subject support strategy per district, which will lead to the subject improvement plan in the school. And a comprehensive subject package was provided to all teachers. We have mediated all of this on Saturday last week with almost 10,000 teachers. We're expecting another cohort of teachers teaching the second subject to be mediated with this afternoon from 3 o'clock onwards. Next slide. Members, we also, positioned ourselves and repositioned the telematics program and modernized it with a view to be able to ensure that we target learners that cannot afford, tuition. And we're making significant progress in having to be able to get most of these learners to be able to schedule and access the telematics broadcasting and lessons. These are all available, on a zero-rated website, and we also link them to the lessons that we have developed and also to the e-portal, where they can be easily accessed. We started a revision program, and we started broadcasting from the 1st of February. But if you look at it, we've also advocated at the moment, you'll notice that we're going to have a weekly lesson or daily lessons for the various grades and subjects that we're targeting. We started the process of planning towards a autumn, winter, and spring program for schools, and we're trying to maximize the use of the Microsoft Teams and other platforms that we can reach out to many learners. Next slide. In conclusion, I just want to say that, look, in the main, we certainly have made significant progress, although from a quality perspective, we really made a great effort last year to stem the tide. I think if we hadn't taken all of those necessary actions, we would have had a significantly different outcome of the metric examination results. And we basically trying our best as a directorate and as a department to ensure that we are in a better space to provide support to enable us to achieve the best possible outcome in 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, our colleagues from the WCED. The chair has just stepped away from our computer quickly due to technical difficulties. I will continue chairing as is. Are you all able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Perfect. We are now going to move on to, I'm just checking, someone is putting the next presentation on. I'm not sure who is doing this presentation, but I do see Mr. Lewis. Is it Lewis that I see on the name?
Alan Meyer.
Mr. Meyer, welcome back. It's very nice to have you with us again.
Thank you.
We haven't seen you in a while. We'll then go directly over to your presentation.
Thank you very much, Acting Chairperson and members of the committee. I have a few slides to speak to school readiness for 2021. Just another focus on our theme for this year around values-driven leadership. And then if we look at admissions for 2021, just in case indication of where we were, we have resolved in excess of 23,000 placements already since September of last year. Currently, as of the 8th of March, we still have 6,594 learners that are unplaced. But we must indicate that these hotspot areas of Mitchell's Plain, Eerste the Strand area, Delft, Dunoon, Umfuleni, Khayelitsha, Vredenburg, Mossel Bay, Hermanus, and Grabouw are all areas where we still require significant, infrastructural support to be able to place learners. So in the Mfuleni area, for example, we have a school or a group of learners who have taken a DHET facility and is occupying that currently. And so in terms to mitigate, the unplaced learners, we are looking at additional posts and we have submitted those requests. Mobile classrooms, of course, to provide accommodation for the learners. And I think the issue, is always one around budget. And we know that during the COVID period and then currently our budget is under significant strain in terms of being able to address the unplaced learners in the province. But we are on a daily basis, we are managing the process. And also just to indicate that we've had about 17,900 first-time entries into the Western Cape from other provinces as well in this process. And so if we just take 17,900, you're probably looking at close on to the need for almost 17 schools, to accommodate 17,900 learners. Colleagues, in terms of support to learners during the COVID period, as well as currently, we have a very strong focus in our districts, in terms of finding out from schools, teachers and learners, what is the support that they require. We also conducted a survey to get to understand, learners who had experienced a family member or a friend that have passed, for example, during the COVID period. So we could offer directed support, to learners as well as to groups of learners as well as to teachers at our schools. It's safe to say that when we started in COVID in last year, a lot of the support was towards teachers, around coming back to school, starting the feeding program, like welcoming learners back in June of last year. And a lot of work was done by our SLES component, our support component to our learners with our psychologists and social workers, to give them a little bit more peace of mind around, the environment in which they are and also into which the learners are coming. And then it shifted a little bit further again into the learner support, of providing support to learners. And a lot of that support was done face-to-face, but also via Microsoft Teams, for example. Some learners were more favorable towards Zoom. Others were more prepared to talk on WhatsApp, for example. And so these were done by psychologists or a social worker, again, individually or in groups, as well as by the school counselors at our School of Skills, for example, that we have throughout the province. Telephonic support was also offered to learners where they needed psychosocial support. our psychologists and social workers, where we also looked at groups and individuals. And for example, in the grade 12 group, there was a lot of support given to them, before the exam. There was also services made available during the exams as well, just to let them know, that we're there to support them, and that if they needed any counseling, they were most welcome, to contact our social workers and our psychologists. We also made virtual contact, as I indicated earlier, via WhatsApp groups or sessions and webinars and videos, in terms of, and we've also dealt with during this period around mindset, for learners, where we showed certain videos, and learners were then they were interacted with by a team of people from the Transform to Perform team in a district, in terms of just saying, that this is where you find yourself as a learner in matric, and this is the possibility that is open to you. And so we use that, and some of our districts even use the Facebook pages, to continuously message students in preparation for the examination. Teachers and parents were also capacitated via various YouTube videos and sound bites that were distributed via WhatsApp, to offer support to our learners as well. And a lot of that is still residing on our portal, the WCD online portal, as continuous, support materials available to parents and learners. And the WCD learner support pathway to guide and, support rendered to learners who were affected by, for example, illness. Some of them, became COVID positive or were isolating, the anxiety of it, and then, of course, the grief of losing a parent and, a family member, and therefore we were able to then go in and offer them that kind of support. I want to reflect on the school improvement plan. There was a question around it, which Tina highlighted. We've increased in terms of the number of schools that are below 60%, from 38 last year to 52 for this year. And we have all of these schools, for example, receive a letter from the HOD regarding, their underperformance, in terms of that they are not above 60% as a bare minimum, but that we, then require of that school an intervention plan, and I'll speak about that in the next slide. We also look at schools under 70%, because they are at risk of either dropping into 60% or they are able to move out to 80%. And so it's a critical group that we identify, so that we also put in a little bit of effort in those schools under 70% to try and bring them up, to a pass rate commensurate with the kind of effort that the school and the district is supporting them with. So in terms of the school improvement plan and the intervention program, and currently these meetings are happening with the district director, the head of curriculum in the district, and the circuit manager. They analyzes the results of their schools that are under 60%. Then the head of education, as I indicated, issue a letter to the school indicating their unfavorable pass rate. And then the school management team is called to the district to come in and explain their results once they've analyzed the results. And so, for example, in Metro East yesterday afternoon, we had 3 schools from their Circuit 9 to come and explain, what are they going to do to improve the results. So we clearly focused on the school management team taking accountability and responsibility for their results, but the district director and his team comes in with how they are going to support them as well. So the school management team presents the intervention plan as part of their school improvement plan. Agreement is reached, and monitoring of the intervention plan is then agreed with the district director and their team. So further, the school is included on the district improvement plan. So the school becomes what is commonly known in the field. The school is a DIP school. So in other words, they are listed in the district improvement plan. And with that, there are certain actions in terms of the intervention that has been agreed to. For example, the school is going to have additional classes for mathematics on a Saturday, and the district involvement is to provide a tutor to provide, tuition to those learners on a Saturday. And I'm very glad that the colleagues from curriculum earlier spoke to the telematics program, that we've seen very strong success in. We've also seen very strong success in the streaming of lessons from schools that have a teacher that has, consistently received excellent results in his subject or her subject, sharing that with 2 or 3 other schools. And it's showing very promising, results of where we're able to have a teacher sharing their expertise with others, in the district, and even across districts as well. At the quarterly executive visits to the district, where the head of education and some of the members of EXCO visit a district, the district has to respond onto the monitoring of the schools below 70%. And so all the schools in the DIP program, are then discussed, and then of course there's a monitoring to see whether the visits are happening to the school, what are interventions that are still active within the school, and how is the school taking ownership of driving the improvement at their school. Thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Can we go on to the last presentation now? Thanks.
Paul, Mr. Swart, can you flight your presentation, please?
Sorry, I'm busy doing so, sir. Okay.
Do you need assistance?
I think it may have been the timing between the one being taken off and the other one coming on.
Osima, are we able to flight?
Just got to check. Hold 1 second. I'll check if I can. I'm having difficulty flighting it. Can you just give me a second or two?
Okay. Can we take a 2-minute stretcher while we attend to this?
Yes, Chairperson.
Okay. Department, we're taking about a 2-minute stretcher until we are ready.
Okay.
Members,
Washima,
can we continue?
Yes,
Washima,
Chairperson.
Yes.
Washima, can you
Okay.
give control to Paul Swart so that he can just control the movement of the slides?
It's okay. It was.
Sorry.
It may be better for Wasima to continue to move the slides.
Sorry, I'm unable to do that.
Oh, I see. Okay. I
Okay,
thought it's
Wasima will control the slide. Mr. Swart, you will speak to the slide.
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Let's continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairperson, and thank you, members. I apologize for the delay that was caused by the slides. My task is to present to you the school readiness in terms of learner transport and LTSM, which is learning support material. The first slide will refer to the learner transport. At the moment, I'm just waiting. There we are. We've had 20 applications for learner transport routes. That would be new routes for a total of 1,410 learners from the beginning of the 2021 school year. All of these applications have been processed. 19 of the 20 new routes are currently operational, and one is en route for approval, whereafter it will be operationalized. Applications to transport an additional 6,012 learners on existing routes were approved and processed in readiness for the 2021 school year. In terms of the learning support material, which it will be on the next slide. There were 671 schools that ordered a total of 386,548 textbooks using the central procurement option within the WCED. The total cost of textbooks ordered amounted to 49 million rand, and 100% of these textbooks ordered were delivered to schools. That concludes my report on the two aspects. Thank you, Chair.
And it went so quick. We struggled so long and it went so quick.
Yeah.
Okay, does that concludes the presentations, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Members, we are okay for time. In terms of how we are embarking on this now, I'll give a round of 2 questions per member. Please, WCED, you now have to jot down all the questions that we pose, and then we'll go to a second round. In the first round of responses to your first round of questions, I will allow for follow-up if need be. Then we'll go to a second round of questions, and we'll go to a third round if need be. Okay? Members, I'm going to note you now for the questions that you have prepared in terms of the presentations. I want to say to WCED, thank you very much for this comprehensive presentations that you did. We will now await your responses. I'm noting you, members. I note members Sayed and Bosman in that order. Thank you. And member Allen.
Chair, can you hear me? Am I audible?
You are. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Can I firstly just some clarity? Can I pose for the entire for 3 presentations, or must it be purely now on 1 presentation? I just wanted to. I'm not sure whether I got that.
You may pose on all 3 or any 3, but you are restricted for this round to 2 questions.
2 questions. Okay. So, okay, I'm going to then just go for now on the senior certificate results. I just wanted to get a sense from the department. What was the, I mean, that's relating to slide number 2. What is the number of learners that basically entered grade 1 in 2009? And the fact that only 54,000 wrote the national senior certificate results actually does indicate, I mean, does it really indicate the level of the dropout rate? Then I also want to, my second question, is there a system to monitor progress of these learners per grade to identify how and where we lose these learners in the system? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Member Bosman. Member Said, lower your hand, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. My question is to Mr. Mayor with regards to support to learners. I would just like to know to what extent is the WCED building in awareness and support to prevent cyberbullying, and what support is being provided to some learners who might fall victim to cyberbullying? And then also to ask, has the department had any success in the involvement of parents? I note that there was a letter circulated by the SG to ask parents to be more involved during this time. So in terms of the correlation between the results and parental involvement, has that increased? Thanks, Chairperson.
Thank you, Member Allen. Member Christians, I note you.
Thank you so much, Chairperson. Let me firstly thank the department for the presentation. My 2 questions, one would be to Ms. Singh, in terms of the, it's 94.2% that turned out to write the 2020 NSC examinations. Regarding the amount that did not write or dropped out, what steps have we taken in order to ascertain the reasons for that? And do we foresee a percentage of that amount rewriting again during 2021? That's my one question. But then as Mr. Meyer was speaking, and I saw on his slide the 17,936 first-time entries into the Western Cape from other provinces. In my head, are you able to hear me, Chair? So sorry. In my head,
yeah. You paused for a while.
So sorry. In my head, I came to that same figure of it's roughly 17 new schools that we possibly need, or that equates to that number. If we continue on this trajectory, Mr. Mayor, how will we cope? It's a huge number of first-time entries, especially looking at where we currently are and how many new schools do we need. Do we have some information on that? That figure is extremely high in where I'm sitting from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Member Kama, I note you. Member Christians.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, just the figure, and I just want to latch on to that, the figure that we have for pupils, learners not placed, 6,594. I know, Mr. Mayor, we're talking about additional posts and also looking at mobile classrooms to accommodate these learners, and he mentioned the hotspots. I've got a lot of complaints from Mitchell's Plain. I've got a constituency office in Mitchell's Plain, and that is inundated with learners that are not placed yet. If we can get a sense from Mr. Mayor, when does he think we will look at placing these 6,594 learners? Madam Chair, you know that when we were in Granatendal and we engaged there with the district and the circuit manager, they were very good in explaining that, you know, with the COVID that we faced, a lot of parents and you know, the blame is at the parents that, you know, when people were doing the remote learning, they did not apply for that, and learners were deregistered. And in the Grenaderdale area, they said to us, listen, they said to the officials, be lenient with the people, you know, assist them. But in Mitchell's Plain, I believe that, you know, after 3 days and 10 days, people were deregistered. And I don't know, you know, what's happening, because the parents are saying we didn't get correspondence. The school is saying we gave correspondence. So there's a big problem with even learners that were deregistered. And I don't know, I've sent people to the district office in Mitchell's Plain to go put their learners on the waiting list there. Those people has not got any response from the district office. They can't go into the district office. They must give the forms to security outside. That is what I heard. And they're still waiting. The district said to them, listen, we will come back to you in a week or 2 weeks time, I think. And they're still waiting, and it's already now almost a month. So if Mr. Mayor can just elaborate on that, and I'm specifically talking about the Mitchell's Plain District Office not getting back to people, and people don't know where they stand. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Christians. Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. Let me also welcome the presentations from the department. Chair, my first question in terms of the results, I have an interest in the maths and physics pass rate, because while the province chair has been a top performer nationally, I'm also concerned that the number of students that are taking these subjects, as well as the pass rate, has been declining when compared to 2018 and 2019. So if we could get the reasons, Chair, for that, and perhaps get an understanding of how far do we go in ensuring that we encourage many learners to take this subject. And also in the case of schools that are, because there are schools, for example, your Florida High, which recently made a decision to cancel these subjects, and I think there were parents that were complaining that there was no consultation and all that. But I want to check, how do we monitor these, and what work do we put in to ensure that these students do take these subjects? The other question that I have, Chair, is on the issue of marking, and in relation to the I think the request for remarking. I want to just get a sense of how many requests have we received for remarking, and how is this number compared to the previous years? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm just adding mine in regard to the matric results. I want to know, in terms of your early research that you are doing, what went wrong? What is the reasons for the dip that we have recorded, especially in the districts of Overberg, Eden, Karoo, and the Metro East? And then I want to know, in terms of the fail that we recorded in the matric results, what are the subjects that constituted the fail? Thank you. That is the round of questions.
I'll come in with the, yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'll come in and respond to many of the questions posed. If I can start off with the first questions in terms of the number of grade 1 learners that entered in 2009. Madam Chair, I don't have the stats readily available, but I will make it available to you. I've sent the request through to the CMIS people, and I will get that stats and provide it to you. The second question is around the system to monitor the progress from one grade to another and in the system, throughout the system. We do have the CMIS system that captures the progress of the learners from grades 1 right up to grade 12. So yes, we do have a system. We do analyze the results year after year because the CMIS gives us an indication of the pass rate per grade per year. The next question, in terms of the turnout rate of 94.2%, so we had 3,152 candidates that did not write the 7 subjects. So the turnout rate is based on the number that wrote the full 7 subject package and were resulted. The reasons why they did not write, we've had numerous medical cases. So if a candidate is not well, he or she might not complete the examination, so will not write the remainder of the subjects. Due to COVID, there were some candidates that were affected and did not write. And also we had cases where candidates just didn't pitch and write. But these cases, the 3,152 candidates will automatically register for the June exam and may sit for the June exam, provided they are registered for the November examination and they have SBA marks on the system. If we look at the maths and physical science pass rates, Madam Chair, the number of students taking the subject, we know that in the Western Cape, the number of students taking the subject is not increasing year on year, and there needs to be more advocacy around this. What we do find is that there are students taking mathematical literacy and are performing very well. So there could be more candidates going for maths literacy, thinking that they're not cut out to do mathematics. But here we will have to do some kind of advocacy and guidance and support to schools and to the candidates themselves in terms of choosing the subject. The pass rate has at various levels in terms of mathematics increased. However, I note the concern there in terms of the ongoing and progression in this area. The marking in terms of the remarks, Madam Chair, it closed yesterday being the 10th of March. So as I speak right now, I cannot give you a full comprehensive number report because the applications are still being processed. We're going to the remarking only next week. So in terms of the online system, we have a dual system. We have an online system where candidates apply and they've got to upload proof, evidence of payment and so forth. I have a team of about 8 people that are working on this as a project, and we will only know by Tuesday next week because we also allow the 1 or 2 that come by email or hard copies or dropped off at district offices. We need to collate that information and put it all together. The reason for the dip in the pass rate, I think Mr. Mayor will talk to that, but overall there has been a dip in the national pass rate as well as provincial pass rate, and one can easily indicate that the COVID situation has contributed to this. That might just be one aspect that poses a challenge. And, you know, in terms of the lockdown, much learning had to take place at home. Much learning was self-directed and students had to take accountability for their own learning, whilst most of the times thereafter, they were forced to be at school. What subjects constituted the fail? There's a combination of factors here, Madam Chair. So we cannot single out a subject or 2 subjects because each candidate will choose subjects, and of their combination, if, for example, they did not meet the requirements, they would fail. We know for a fact that the performance in certain subjects was quite poorer than the previous years. And I think Mr. Mohammed can come in here and talk to the subject performance in terms of the 2020 cohort. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Singh.
Mr. Mohammed.
Mr. Mohammed. And you refer to
Prasad,
Mr. Mayor as well?
Mr.
Mohammed, continue.
Mr. Hariprasad will represent the input.
Yeah. Look, we did an analysis and we picked up that there seems to be a lack of parity of home languages. We raised the matter with the National Department. In fact, the pass rates in English and Afrikaans home language actually contributed to almost 5%, just over 5% of the failure rate in the province. A learner fails home language, fails the exam. We then subsequently picked up that there were other challenges. The subjects like geography, we had a decline. We had a decline in life sciences. And we also looked at some of the challenges that the subjects like, for example, accounting and business studies, although we had an improvement in the pass rates, but the fact that I was privy to be participating in the standardization meetings, and we did very well as a province in the raw score performance. But after they dropped the marks, lots of the learners fell back into the norm. And as a result, we didn't benefit fully. So there are various factors that are influencing the rules of combinations. We picked up also, for example, the technical science subject and technical maths. That two combinations also contributed to almost about 600 learners failing. And we know the reasons why. The challenge with the level of cognitive demand for technical maths and technical science is certainly out of the norm. The National Department has also accepted the fact that the subjects itself, in terms of the subject statements, needs to be reviewed, and a process is being put in place. The technical mathematics subject does not have a practical component, and that is being introduced this year, so that will have a significant improvement in technical maths. So they are like my Chief Director Tina Singh mentioned, various combinations of subjects that contribute towards learner performance and pass rates. So we have identified exactly every school, which subject, which content area, where the problems were. And based on the analysis, we would certainly be providing a more effective support program. So, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. Mr. Meyer, are you adding anything?
Yes, I will, Chairperson. The question from Member Bosman regarding bullying. We do have a anti-bullying circular that was issued in 2017 already regarding guidelines of social media and social networking. But also part of the Safe Schools strategy around anti-bullying, social or cyberbullying is included within there. So that is a regular, kind of discussion that Safe Schools is also having in our schools. Member Bosman also asked about the involvement of parents. I think, it is very clear that in some areas where we have very strong parental support to learners, if we look at those learners, for example, that did exceptionally well and were honored at the recent awards, that most of them will say, the strong support of their parents as well. And so we've long acknowledged that. And so therefore, we also going to start another program very soon, or we'll expand on another program of where we're wanting to encourage parents to be reading with their children. So it's also a part of skilling parents, but also to ensure that our learners are able to read better. Because I think, and we're starting it in the primary school because that is where it should start, and sustaining that through to the high school, of course, is going to be the challenge. So the anti-bullying and the parental involvement, I think I'll cover in that way. Then in terms of Member Allen's question around the 17,000 learners entering the province on an annual basis, this is not something new. It's something that happens every year where we have quite a significant numbers of learners coming from other provinces. What we do also acknowledge, particularly this year, and as was raised recently in the meeting with the community leaders, was the impact of COVID as well. So a lot of learners were with grandparents, for example, in the Eastern Cape, and unfortunately the grandparents have now passed, and so the learners are presenting, in Cape Town now with their parents to try and find, a place at the school. yes, it is something that's continuing to grow on an annual basis. We try to plan for it. We try to, address the matter. And so if I take the Umfuleni area, for example, which I'm fairly familiar with, we started 2 schools there in last year, Fairdale High and Fairdale Primary, for example. Initially, quite a bit of community resistance because it was across the road from Umfuleni, the high school. But eventually, learners started at the school. Those 2 schools, for example, are full, chock and block, and within a space of a year. Normally, our plan is to start a school with grade 8, 9, and then we expand to 10, and then we expand to 11, and so on. And so unfortunately, in certain areas where there just is a lot of pressure on schools, schools then take in additional learners. And the process of applying for additional posts have started, because we have to wait until the 10th day when we have clarification in terms of the learner numbers at the school. So now some learners have not returned, and so therefore we can offer that space to another learner. So the placements, as I indicated, will continue. And I'm going into Member Christian's question as well. It is difficult for me to say at this point in time by when exactly, in terms of a date we will be able to place all the learners. But as soon as we get the approval for the additional posts, and there's potentially some assistance around some additional mobile classrooms, which Mrs. McGlynn-Attendorf could perhaps speak to. But yes, we are trying to accommodate all of the learners. Then, Member Christians had a question around the deregistration of learners in Mitchells Plain. If the member could please forward me some of that detail so that I can follow it up with the district office. If there are cases, we will definitely want to have a look into that. If parents are saying they've not received notice and the school saying they issued notice, I'd like to investigate that and come back to you with a formal response. The issue around the forms at the security gate outside, we had a situation about 2-3 weeks ago where people stormed the district office. And so we couldn't adhere to any social distancing protocols or anything like COVID protocols because the crowd just moved into every single corner of the district office. And it was quite a risk to the staff as well as to the people, that stormed the offices as well in terms of COVID. So therefore now, they have a system of where people hand in the forms at security. Please, again, if there are people who have not been responded to, and I know we've got a very strong team there, I'm headed by Ms. Primo in the Metro South District. She's got a team around her that's dealing with admissions, but please send me, information regarding that so that I can follow up on that specific matter. The question by Member Kama around how do schools just drop mathematics? It's not that easy, sir. They have to write to a committee, which I chair, and the curriculum is part of that committee, where approval is given to reduce the curriculum of the school or to expand on the curriculum of a school. So, for example, we've got a lot of schools wanting to do agricultural science and agricultural management. They have to submit a request to that committee, who then makes a decision as to whether to approve it or not. And we normally would look at, the demographic of the student, what is the accessibility to rural or to farming. If let's say, for example, it's agricultural science. If a school is dropping mathematics, they have to provide extensive reasons for that, and not just the results of learners, but perhaps it may be a capacity constraint as well at a school, in terms of having suitably qualified persons to teach the subject. But of course, each one is evaluated in terms of its merits. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mohammed, are you wanting to add something?
No, I'm covered. Thank you very much.
Okay, because your mic is on, sir. Please, if you can switch off. Members, that is missing. I note you. Member Christians, I also note you. I'll come back to you. Missing, you want to add?
Yes, thank you, Chair. The question regarding the number of learners in grade 1 in 2009, the number is 95,725 learners registered with the WCD in 2009 at grade 1. Madam Chair, also we must note the migration either into provincial that also would allow learners to leave or exit the system and enter the system in another province. So with the interprovincial migration, also with the parents immigrating, that can also impact in terms of numbers decreasing over the years. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. Singh. Members, I just want to have an indication from you. I noted the hands of members Christians, Bosman and Kama. Is this in regard to following up on the responses that you have received from the initial questions that you have posed? Yes or no?
Yes,
Not
yes.
Second round for me.
Yeah. It's
mine is also on the
Let me do
second.
this. Let me do this. Member Christians, is it a follow-up?
Yeah, it's a follow-up on a question that was
Okay,
answered.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Member Kama, is it a follow-up?
No, Chair.
Okay. Member Said, is it a follow-up?
Yes, Chair, mine is a follow-up on the last
Right.
response.
Okay,
now
thank
that was
you.
just given.
Then members Bosman and Kama is a second round of questions. They're going to start the second round. Members Christians and Sayed is going to follow up on the initial question. So I'm starting with member Christians.
Thank you, Chair. Just the one is, I know Mr. Allen said that they cannot, guarantee that the time of the 6,594 learners that will be placed. The question is, will they be placed? Because parents need to know. I know you don't have a time, but will they be placed? What do I tell the parent? That's just the one. The other thing was followed on the other question, Chair, is I just received a WhatsApp this morning. Ravensmead is up in roar and arms because I believe that mathematics, and Mr. Allen did explain, it comes to him. But I believe Ravensmead, and I don't have all the details, this has sent me a voice note this morning. The maths and science is no longer offered at Ravensmead, and that children that want to take maths and science must now go look for other places to do that. Can we just hear? I mean, you hear the one side of the story, and that's why I'm just asking for clarity when I go back to the people. What is the process? Why is there no science and maths offered at Ravensmead, and why must learners now go to other areas for those subjects? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Said.
Chair, no, it's fine. My follow-up is now covered by member Christians, so I'm going to rather go and have another question in another round. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Meyer, you want to respond to that follow-up, please?
Yes, member Christians, we will endeavour and give our best to place every single learner in the province. I have a dedicated team at head office, as well as in the districts that are driving this. Up to 21 people in every district office is busy with placements. So you can understand it's quite a bigger machinery that we've got in place to try and ensure that every child finds a quality learning space in the province. Regarding the issue of mathematics at Ravensmead, it's a bit difficult because I know the principal, for example, of Ravensmead is a very strong maths person himself. And so, I just find it a bit strange, but allow me to investigate, and I will definitely provide feedback to Ms. Washima on that particular matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Members, we are now going on to our second round. And please indicate on what presentation you are posing your question. I am starting with member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. My question is with regards to learners not placed. And the first one is how many of the learners that are currently unplaced only applied late, so the learners who specifically applied late, and especially those who applied after the schools have already opened for other learners. If we can just get an understanding of those 6,000 learners, how many those are. And then the second question, Chair, is in terms of the guidelines that schools have from the department in terms of learners living within a so-called catchment area of the school. What are the guidelines that schools have? Because we are receiving anecdotal evidence from constituents that certain schools are turning learners away And certain schools are also asking for bond documents and proof of address that is in the form of a lease, etc. So if we can just get a clear understanding of what guidelines schools are to use, so that parents are also able to know what they need to take to schools. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. My first question also is on the unplaced learners. One question that I first want to understand, Chair, in terms of the numbers that are given on this page, I want to check if do they also include your late applications, because I'm looking at the Cape Winelands Education District. Now, from Begweni alone, I've been having many parents who have been contacting me, and here we say for grade 8 specifically, we say the whole district is only 96 that are not placed, but when you engage with the schools, you find that there's indeed a greater number, and I spoke to the principal of the both senior secondary schools that are in Begweni, and they were raising the frustration that there are so many people who do not have a place, and they've been communicating with the department with no luck in this regard. And if you look at Desmond below Tutu, it's already at 1,821 learners with 45 teachers, and you really see that it's quite close to impossible for them to ask to admit more learners. So I really want to get a sense as to what are the plans to create a space, as opposed to saying we're going to try our level best to place them. The other question that I have, Chair, it's in the same presentation on your school improvement plan. I see there that we say all schools who have achieved less than 60% in the National Senior Certificate exams are required to develop an intervention plan. And the number of schools that had less than 60% in 2019 was 48, and in 2020 was 49. Now, I want to get an understanding in terms of 2019. Did all the 48 schools develop these intervention plans? And out of those 48, was there any improvement in terms that was informed by these interventions? Or should I say, how many of the 48 schools that were there in 2009 are part of the 49 of 2020? I mean, if I make sense. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Syed.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I mean, my questions are on the learners that are unplaced. Firstly, the issue I wanted to get a sense of, and whether they can respond now or submit it to us in writing, could we get an idea of, and I know that there is a breakdown in terms of district, but per district, can we get a breakdown of the areas? I want to know in terms of the kind of it kind of a division between poor, working class, and more well-to-do areas. Then also a breakdown in terms of age, a breakdown in terms of gender, and a breakdown in terms of race. If we can get that now, if not, I mean, they can always basically submit that information to the committee. Then the second question on this matter is with regards to the situation where learners are currently learning under the tree, Eersterrivier, and I heard that there has been an update just in terms of that there's an occupation of a particular building, and that for me ties also in with the neighboring area, Umfuleni. Could Mr. Mayor perhaps just give us some more information as to what progress has been made with regards to engagements with the City of Cape Town as well, and the Department of Higher Education, because I know that that particular venue, which the parents of Mfuleni are now busy occupying, that belongs to the Department of Higher Education. I just wanted to know what has been the level of engagement with regards to the city and with regards to the Department of Higher Education regarding resolving these matters, and and the progress with regards to ensuring that there are more schools in the area. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then in just regard to school, and I'm not sure whether it was in school readiness or was part of the matric results, but anyway, the waiting time for learners to access psychosocial support. What is that waiting time? And I want to check whether there are still learners in waiting who have, applied for psychosocial support, whether there are still learners in waiting to access this support. And then this morning I learned that water supply to some Eastern Cape schools have been cut because of the Education Department failing to pay historic water debt. I wanted to know, would any of our schools find themselves in this boat? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I noted Member, why am I?
Looks like Brinkhuis, Member Botha.
Member Brinkhuis. Okay, Member Bosman's hand was also up, but I see it's down now. Member Brinkhuis, apologies, your turn.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Chair, my question is with regard to learner transport. And I would just like to first welcome the presentation from the Western Cape Education Department. And my question to the department is, all the transport companies that is contracted to the Education Department, did they receive all their monies so that they can start to transport the learners? Have all the transport companies, have they received their monies according to their contracts? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Brinkhuis. That is the round of questions, and I note, Mr. Mayor, it's most for you to respond to.
I have the unenviable task, I know, Member Chairperson. Yes, members, Member Bosman, in terms of guidelines on what learners need to register, it is on the portal, on the SAMI portal, where when parents apply. We know of many schools that have tried, various methods of, eliminating parents from applying at their schools by requesting a whole range of, documentation from parents, ranging from rates accounts to, whether the parent has any judgment in terms of financial judgment against them, etc. All of those practices are illegal. A parent needs a learner's report, a learner's clinic card, and a learner's identity document to apply to a particular school. Some schools request additional documentation, which parents can then have to collect from the school. And if any of those documents that the parent needs to comply, the parent is uncomfortable with, they're most welcome to contact my office, where the staff in my office will then respond to the school and address the matter with them. So please, again, the offer is there. Let us rather deal with the issue, as soon as it pops up, and not wait until it becomes a much bigger problem at a later point. So the offer, Member Bosman, if you can forward those particular matters to my office, Washima has my contact details, and you're most welcome to send that so that I can follow up on individual cases. Member Kama, in terms of unplaced learners, yes, they include late applications. They include applications of learners that even arrived last week still. And so we can differentiate between who are those that are there much longer on the list, and most definitely those learners receive preference, in terms of placement, because we have an order in which we work on that particular database. But as I've also indicated in the Mitchell's Plain office, we had a number of people rushing the building and completed forms, and those forms have to be captured on the system so that we can control who has potentially already been placed at another school, and now wants to be at a school of choice, and therefore making another application at the particular district office. In terms of the validity of numbers, those are the actuals that are recorded on the system. If you are aware of learners that are not on those particular lists, because those lists are shared with every district, and every circuit manager's staff, for example, the circuit admin officer and the circuit admin clerk, are actually assisting with the placements. So if you're saying to me that in the Mbekweni area, I will speak to Mr. Maliwa, who is the circuit manager for that area, and just ascertain if there are other numbers of learners who have not registered yet that we would then have to include on our database, so that we can also seek for places for them. I do acknowledge, and I've personally been to some of the schools in the Mbekweni area, expansion is almost impossible because of the geography of the ground. Some areas are fairly steep and therefore difficult for us to actually place additional mobiles. But we've also looked at schools in the surrounding area, and hence we also transport learners from the Mbekweni area to other areas to be accommodated at schools where we have capacity. Then you asked about the schools that were in the under 60% of last year. Yes, about 15 of those schools are back in the list of under 60 this year. So it's about a 50%, kind of improvement of schools that moved out of under 60%. But definitely, they stay in the program still. So even though we've had some that have moved out now, out of 60, the districts prefer to work with the school for a period of 3 years, because otherwise you have the yo-yo effect. So we help them out. The next year they're now on their own, they fall back into under 60. So we try and keep them in the program for 3 years to try and get them to a point of where they're more sustainable in terms of maintaining the result above 60%. Member Sayed, I can and we will provide the information you have requested per district of the unplaced learners, the areas in the specific district in terms of race and gender and age. And what we will try and do, is also just give an indication of which schools the learners are applying to, just to give you a sense of that. In terms of the Mfuleni case, I've met with higher education, DHET, on 2 occasions now. We had agreed that we would meet with the community leaders of Mfuleni on Tuesday, which we did. We met at the CTLI with the community leaders to discuss I'm just trying to find the occupation of Rosendal House, which is the DHET facility. Now, DHET, I met with the DHET senior managers as well as the chairperson of the council. I think it is, I'll get you his name. And they indicated that they're not necessarily wanting to put the people out of the facility until, the learners have been given, a space to go to. My request at that first meeting with DHET was I needed to do an analysis of who and a verification of who the learners are in the facility. I can only action something if I know who the children are that are there. So we've given numbers. The community provided us with numbers to say there are so many 268 learners in primary school that are there. So let me just get the numbers. 264 primary school learners that are there. There's 1,072 high school learners that are in that facility. We've not verified who those learners are. We're not quite sure whether those are learners that are already in school, because most of them are wearing a uniform, which is an indication that they were actually in a school already. We initially sent in some officials, just to go and have a look. And one of our officials that was there identified learners that she had actually placed, because she's a circuit admin officer. She had actually placed those I think it was 2 learners at a school in Mfuleni. And so when we look at the numbers in Mfuleni of grade 7s last year and the space that there was for grade 8 this year, we would have comfortably accommodated all the primary school learners of Umfuleni in the high schools in Umfuleni, because we had that capacity within the area. Where this 1,072 comes from is what we need to establish. And so when I met with them on Tuesday, with the community leaders on Tuesday, they've made certain requests. They want the school to continue to exist. They want us to put mobiles on another site, and they want the school to be started because they've got, I think it's 69 teachers that are there, 28 for the primary school and 41 teachers that they have for the high school. There's a governing body, and I don't know, they've actually established the school in their understanding. But I've indicated that we will not be paying those teachers because they're not on our payroll. They've not been appointed in terms of our recruitment and selection processes. And so therefore I'm not prepared to entertain, those members. So I've asked again to come in and do a verification. Again, we've been refused access to do that verification. The community leaders indicated they're meeting with the parents. They met with the parents yesterday evening, and they will give me an answer on Friday morning when I'm supposed to give them feedback as well of whether we're going to be able to put mobiles on a particular site or start a new school for them. And so they're wanting to first hear what I'm going to say before they're going to give me permission to verify who these learners are. And I want to say, that I understand that, parents would want a school of choice for children. At this point in time, learners will have to return to the schools where they were learners last year in order for us to establish first who exactly are these 1,072 and place them accordingly. Lastly, in terms of access to psychosocial support, the school-based support team, the SBST, every school has a school-based support team. They would identify learners that require support. The school-based support team then contacts the district office, or the social worker, or the social worker, or the psychologist, or the learning support person for that particular circuit, and then arrange for an appointment for the learners. It shouldn't be a very protracted period of time for a psychologist to see a learner, because we are in a very fortunate position in that we've got a psychologist for every circuit. So there's about 20 schools that is serviced by a psychologist, a social worker, and a learning support advisor. So Member Botha, I honestly would not want to see a child waiting for more than 2 weeks to see a psychologist or a social worker. But if there are cases, please address it to me so that I can follow up with them as well. In terms of the water supply, perhaps I see Mrs. McGlenn's hand was up. Perhaps she can respond to that. But from where I'm sitting, there's been no schools water that has been cut that I'm aware of. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Ms. McGlenn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I can give you some feedback on the water question. I mean, we are constantly in contact with schools. Schools are responsible for the settlement of accounts for municipal services, but where they are in trouble, they do apply for financial support to our finance department. And we then look into each individual the circumstances of each individual school, and do support schools. So we are aware, of any issues, and there are currently none. The issue in this province is that the cost of water has risen sharply, and schools were charged as domestic. They were charged at a domestic rate, and that has been increased 2 years ago. So there's been a sharp increase in the cost of water, and schools are struggling in these difficult times to pay the bills. So it isn't a problem. I just want to add, in terms of the placing learners and providing mobile classrooms, that it's not as simple as providing a classroom for all of the learners that are unplaced. If we have to create a new school, the supply of services that comes with that school then becomes a problem once the school is placed. And we have schools that started more than a year ago where the services are not in place as we speak now, as the city it has not been at work during COVID. So we place a school and that is accepted by the community, and the minute the school is there, the services become an issue and it's out of the Department of Education's control. I mean, we are spending a lot of time trying to get these services connected. So I wanted to bring that to everyone's attention because we are looking for assistance in this matter. And then also the teacher posts, of course, have to be considered. It's not a matter of placing a classroom. I mean, it's a long-term commitment that we make to employ a teacher at the school. So we are looking at the very best ways to solve the problem and to place all of these learners, and we're all working together to solve the problem. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Ms. McGlynn. Mr. Meyer, I see that your hand is up. Is that now from before, or would you want to add something else?
Thank you, Chairperson. Just in response to Member Christian's question regarding physical science and mathematics at Ravensmead, I've just got confirmation from the district director that says they are still doing the subjects. But I will follow up and get a complete report from the school as well. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Meyer. Members, I note Member Sayed's hand is up. Member Kama's was up but is now down. Is this in regard to following up on the responses that you have received?
Yes, Chair, mine is a follow-up.
Please go ahead.
Chair, thank you very much. Mine is with regards to the issue of the water bills. It is said now that schools are charged per domestic rates, and those keep on increasing sharply. Now, I know it's not necessarily the responsibility purely of the department, and we should actually be engaging with the city on this, but has the department been engaging with the city of Cape Town around this issue, so that the schools can maybe not be charged the domestic rates, and there can be some type of, waivers, because also what's standing in the way of many schools, even to, actually operate, is this issue of the bills and the debt that they've got. Is there an engagement being facilitated at least? I just wanted to get a sense of that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. McGlynn, you want to respond to that?
Yes, I just want to correct the member said
I can't hear.
We have lost you, Ms. McGlynn. Ms. McGlynn.
Could you repeat, Ms. McGlynn?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear you now.
Okay. So they were charged at domestic rates and they are now charged at business rates. And that's where the increase came in. So I just wanted to correct that. And we have had an engagement with the city, with Xanthia Lindbergh, the municipal manager, with the minister. So the MEC did facilitate, and the issue is that the city, after the drought, everybody is reducing their water usage. So the income that the city is getting is the issue. That's been reduced, and the city is trying to balance their income so that they can maintain the infrastructure, the water infrastructure. And so we did have an engagement with the city and our financial people to make that plea, because we agree fully that schools are struggling, and and the city made it very clear that they need the income, and so people are using very much less water after the drought, so we have now asked schools. We are assisting the schools, and we are constantly installing boreholes, which comes with another range of issues, you know, when the pumps are vandalized and whatever. But so we are on a campaign to try and get schools also to use less water to reduce their water. So it's an active campaign on the side of the education department, and something we are continuously working on to improve, you know. And we have a very close relationship with schools, especially the ones in trouble. But I just wanted to mention, you know, that it is a problem. So thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. McGlenn. Members, it is 10:58. I will allow for another one question per member if you have, before I would go to a member of the public who also wants to pose a question. Members Karma and Sayed.
Thank you very much, Chair. My question is still on this presentation of school readiness. I want to check, Chair, because I think quite recently or late last year, Member Said asked a question to the MEC about the applications, and the response indicated that at that point there were about 150,000 applications that were received, and at that point about 32,000 of those were unsuccessful. Now I want to get a sense, Chair, of what could be the possible reasons for applications to be unsuccessful, and whether are there any steps that are taken to assist the parents to ensure that the learners get a placement. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Member Karma. Member Sayed.
Chair, thank you very much. Mine is on the issue of the learner transport. I just wanted to get a sense, Chair, what is the level of engagement right now with the service providers? It probably links up to Member Brinke's question. Is there currently an agreement in place? Because we've had, I mean, quite a few skirmishes last year. I just wanted to get a sense as to whether the department identifies any risk factors currently with regards to the relationship with the service providers, so that we don't run into a problem later on into the year. Chair, and this is particularly with regards to the rural routes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Any other member? No. In regard to the learner transport also, I just wanted to check, who do I send communication to with a very specific school in mind in regard to learner transport of learners that are not currently on learner transport, but they have to cover with their parents quite a bit of kilometers to and from school. So if you can just indicate to me, then I will do the communication right after the standing committee meeting.
Chairperson, that question.
Yes, Mr. Swart, go ahead.
That question can be directed at me, Paul Swart.
Thank you very much. I will do so. In regard to the other questions posed, are you responding to that as well? The other learner transport question? Thank you. Yes. Please go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, from the beginning of the COVID situation, we've had regular meetings with two bodies that represent our learner transport contractors. The one is the South African National Small Bus Operators Council, or SANSBOC, and the other organization is SABOA, or Southern African Bus Operators Association. Now, representatives of WCD, including myself, met on a regular basis. That would be at least every 2 months, with the with both organizations and their particular representatives. Now, right in the beginning, there were different kind of restrictions in that vehicles could only transport a certain number of learners. And so at the time, we could then discuss and agree on a payment structure. When transport operators were allowed to transport 100% of the capacity of their buses, another solution evolved in discussion with the contractors. We now have a payment structure in place, which is agreed upon by both organizations, and we've had no complaints from individual contractors in addition to that. And this payment structure makes provision for an allowance payable as a result of contractors not being able to transport all the learners as per contract. And so we use a sliding scale to be able to pay a greater allowance to those who are transporting the fewest number of learners. There was agreement about this. The last time I engaged the contractors was in December, because our last, we have the education head approve a structure from time to time, and at that time, the one expired, and we had to discuss the way forward. Now, contractors were very much in support, or these representative bodies were very much in support of the current payment structure that we are using, because it actually eliminates itself. Once a contractor transports more than 90% of learners, this method would automatically not apply to that contractor. So we really try to make an allowance possible for where contractors are transporting much fewer than they are contracted for. Nevertheless, there's agreement with it and satisfaction. The current method, which is the same that applied the last quarter of last year, will continue until the 23rd of April. I will again at the beginning of April have an engagement with the contractors so that they can indicate whether they are still in agreement, and then make a submission to the head of education for approval of the payment structure to continue. This year, at the end of February, because of the extended period of learners remaining at home, we were also positive in terms of the contractors' request, or these bodies requesting whether some contractors who could not wait for the full month, that they are paid then after 2 months. So at head office, we did not receive any complaints from contractors, neither from these two bodies, SANSBOC and SABOA. I am in regular contact over and above our engagements. I'm in regular telephone contact with them. So whenever we need to speak, we actually communicate with one another about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, have all your questions been responded to? And do you still want to settle for a follow-up? I note Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'm not sure if I missed it, and maybe it just needs to be emphasized again, but the question on the criteria that schools are using to ascertain whether learners can be admitted, does that include proof of address in the form of a title deed or a rental agreement? Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Member Syed.
Chair, mine is a follow-up on Member Bosman's question. I just wanted to get a sense on the issue of the school's criteria. Is the department looking at the possibility of having a standardized admissions policy that schools can obviously be held accountable to? And what is the level of monitoring on the part of districts with schools when it comes to, to some of the inconsistencies with regards to admissions? Because we do find, Chair, And Mr. Mayor would know because we forward some of this correspondence to him. We do find sometimes schools giving reasons for learners not being accepted that are not really even in line with their own criteria that they have. For example, learners can stay in the catchment area, but you will then have learners from a different area entering the school, whereas a learner from that catchment area has applied way in advance. I just wanted to get a sense as to what's the level of monitoring also of this thing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor?
Good day. Thank you, Chairperson.
Those questions and follow up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just in terms of the criteria that the school uses for admission, that is a responsibility of the school governing body. Remember, the school governing body, in terms of its governance role, has to formulate various policies for the school, and the admission policy is one of that. We do have monitoring of the admission policies, particularly to see if there's any criteria included in a school's admission policy that is unfair or goes against what we as a province are wanting to promote. So for example, we've not declared feeder zones within the province, for example, and so therefore, you know, it wouldn't allow a school to say, but we're only taking children or learners from this specific area. And that is one aspect. So the circuit manager would normally have a discussion with the school principal regarding the admissions policy, and seeing that the admission policy is fair to all learners who are making application to the school. In terms of a provincial admissions policy, it is a discussion at this point within the organization. We have provided a number of circulars indicating illegal practices that schools are doing, measures that schools are putting in place to sort of negate certain parents from applying at their school. We have published that. We have indicated that even on the website where parents are applying, that anything that can be considered to be unfair, that we are made aware of that as soon as possible, preferably before 9 o'clock in the evening, members say it, so that we can then follow up on those particular issues, you know, the next day and give you some feedback on that as well. So yes, in terms of a provincial admissions policy, we are discussing that currently, and then also looking at additional monitoring around the admission policies of schools, because you are aware we're having governing body elections in March, and then there's going to be a process of developing policies again, where governing bodies would want to revisit and potentially add to their various policies at the school, as the new governing body may want to do that. And so therefore there will be a requirement on circuit managers again to go in, have a look at the policy and see whether the policy is fair, in the sense that it does not exclude, you know, people from applying at a particular school. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Swart, did you want to add anything? I see that your mic is on and off.
Sorry, Chairperson, I forgot to switch my mic off.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to check with you in regard to the Redlinghuis amalgamation. Is this within your domain, sir?
Can I say I'm too scared to answer?
Please answer. Please answer.
Member Botha, that matter is dealt with within our branch. There are proposals that have been put forward, etc. So I could ask Mr. Lewis to submit a formal response to a request that you could perhaps forward through to him, and I can make him aware of that.
Okay, I will then do so. Thank you very much. Okay, members, I think that we have exhausted our questions to the department. I will now afford an opportunity to two members of the public who are on the platform who wishes to pose a question or two to the department. I have noted Mr. Gabir. Mr. Gabir has not been in this Education Standing Committee meeting for a long time, and we know him all. And then Mr. Lapule. So I'm going to start with Mr. Gabir. Mr. Gabir, you may pose your question and please indicate on the presentations on which presentation are you posing the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's nice to hear your voice. It's been a while since I've seen you, and to all the members of the WCED that has availed themselves for this important presentations, and obviously members of the legislature who are present. Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, I don't have the slide number, but it was, I'm not sure if it was you or Ms. Singh, but I saw a slide that said in terms of the school readiness that last year, September, there was a total of 23,000 plus students that were placed that apparently had been on waiting lists up until that point. So this question sort of in two parts. The first part is, of the 23,000 students that were on waiting lists, how many of them were white? And of the 6,000 that remain in the province in those hotspots that were mentioned on that slide, how many of those students are white? And the reason I'm asking this is very specific, and I'm not going to come from a place of discomfort, and it may be uncomfortable for you. But I think that the challenge remains is that these hotspots are not in the leafy suburbs, man. So I just want to get a sense of if you've got those details. My second question is in two parts. So first part is, I know that Mr. Mayor and those that are involved in school transport, and that you've already got the rates and or routes that have been approved, 19 out of 20 at this point. And that Mr. Mayor also mentioned that, you know, that one of the priorities is to find quality learning spaces for learners who are not placed. So why, or has there been rather considered that transport of students be taken or arranged to underutilized schools in those leafy suburbs where, you know, class sizes are between 20 and 25 or maybe 26 or 27, as opposed to sort of looking for spaces where students are going to be 30 plus or 40 plus. And I'm just wondering that, you know, that there's a general sense that learners are, in terms of the quality learning space, sort of, you know, allowed to find that it's okay to go into a class of 40, when I think the provincial recommendation is 37 or so. So the second part of that question, and I'm not sure, but I'm looking at the budget surplus of last year, and it relates to this, but I think, and I stand under correction, Mr. Mayor, that there was a budget surplus of 213 million on the last budget. I'm not sure if that says 19, that says 19 and 20, right? So I'm not sure what 2021 is going to be. But in terms of the surplus for WCD, is that you mentioned that trying to find budget, and there's pressure on the budget in terms of additional posts and mobile classrooms and so on and so forth. How come that there's a surplus and there's always budget pressure when the department is unable to spend the budgets that they have or has been allocated? And again, comes down to, you would rather spend money on transport than to go and use those underutilized classrooms in those Model C schools in the northern and southern suburbs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabir. You may lower your hand now. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Chairperson. In terms of the first question of Mr. Kabir, I'll have to go back and go and look at the statistics and be able to extract the report for him. Can I mail that report to Washima to share with Mr. Kabir, and then we'll definitely do that. In terms of the underutilized classrooms and the approval of learner transport, for example, in Bonteheuwel, we've got Arcadia High School where we've got vacant classrooms. In Metro North, we've got vacant classrooms at the Range, for example, and Range Primary as well. But because of activities within the communities where those schools are found, parents are not very rarely prepared to send their learners to those particular schools. We would love to be able to accommodate learners in those unused classrooms at our schools. We even prepared and have discussed and have discussed previously the possibility of also transporting learners from another area to an area where there are classrooms available at a school. And so that is still definitely on the cards, and we definitely would want to, even as part of the placement of the last batch of learners, look at those possible. Well, we are looking at those possibilities as well. And so there may be, as Mr. Swart indicated, 20 additional routes. They may still be coming up where we may want to accommodate learners with transport. The last point around the 213 million surplus. Unfortunately, I'm not exactly in that space, so I can't tell you exactly, where that 213 million, comes from. But I do know a large part of that would come from unspent cost of employment. In other words, because we've not filled certain posts, etc., we didn't pay out bonuses, that kind of thing. That may be part of it. I don't know. I think the finance people are best placed to perhaps answer that question.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lapula.
Good morning, Chairperson. It's actually Miss Lipule.
Good morning.
Not a
I am
problem.
so sorry. Please accept
Not
my
a
humble
problem.
apology to you, ma'am.
Not a problem.
You
My
may
name
go
is
ahead.
Tshego Lipule. My name is Tshego Lipule, and I'm with the Weekend August newspaper. I just wanted to double check something quickly with regards to the need for new schools. How many new schools are planned for completion in the current or the following financial year, and how many of those schools are in the hotspot areas? And just to double check on the teacher to learner ratios as well in schools that are in these hotspot areas, if I could just get clarity on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lapule. Mr. Meyer.
Chairperson, I'm sure Mrs. McLean will speak to some of the questions around the schools and the buildings and that. I will just touch on the issue of the learner-pupil ratio. Our EXCO, for example, has an understanding that there will be no school with a ratio of above 1:40. And so where schools have a ratio that is above 1:40, we will always endeavor to bring that school to below the 1:40 ratio. And so in a small school, for example, that increases with a small number of learners, it may not necessarily justify an additional teacher, but if it is going to relieve the pressure in certain grades. So if I can give you an example, we may have grades at particular grade 8 where the ratio is very high, but because the ratio at grade 12 is very low, the school's average comes out fairly low, or the ratio of the school comes out fairly low. We would still motivate to try and get an additional post at the lower end of the scale in the grade 8 area to reduce the kind of number of learners in a class at grade 8 level as well. And so that is also taken into consideration when we apply for additional posts. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Ms. McLean, do you want to attempt the other part?
Yes.
Ms. McLean, we have lost you there.
Yeah, my mic keeps muting itself. It happened last time as well. Anyway, so all of the hotspot areas are the areas that we target for building new schools. The issue that we have is that you do not always, there isn't always land available in these areas. But I mean, those are the highest priorities in the province, are the hotspot areas. Dunoon is a classic example where there is no land in Dunoon to build a school. But those are the areas. I mean, we don't build any new schools in leafy suburbs. We are targeting hotspot areas only. I cannot, and then also we build one school, but we cannot keep up with the backlogs. An average of in excess of 20,000 learners per year. We cannot build 20 schools. The budget does not allow. We have to maintain the 1,500 schools that we have. So it's a very complex issue, the accommodation of and provision of schools. We cannot accommodate the influx each year. If the numbers were constant in this province, we would have a fighting chance of being able to plan infrastructure that could support all the learners in the province. But coming in, I mean, it's more than 5 years now that we had an influx of 20,000 and we haven't provided 20 schools per year. So there's a backlog of more than 140 schools, new schools I'm talking about. Still the replacement schools, which also sit somewhere else. And you know, so the infrastructure budgets that we're being allocated cannot solve the problem. We'll have to look for a non-infrastructure solution to this problem. And maybe COVID has opened everyone's eyes and moved us in that direction of looking at, you know, another way of providing education. Yeah, so I don't know if that answers. I don't have offhand the schools. I know we provided 9,000 places for 2021. If that was the question, there were 2 new schools and the other places were expansions. I mean, 2 new brick and mortar schools. And then there were new mobile schools, 2 new mobile schools, and then expansions of existing mobile schools and brick and mortar schools, which resulted in 9,700 places for 2021. So clearly we're not catering for the influx and you know, those were all in the correct areas, but not sufficient to accommodate all the learners. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. McGlynn. Member Kama, I noted you. Did you still want to ask a question? Because I'd rather, if you can, do it in a recommendation, prefer to do that so that I give Ms. Lepule and Mr. Kabir an opportunity to follow up.
I'll do so, Chair. I'll use the commendation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Kabir, you wanted to follow up. Please, not a motivation, just your follow-up question. And then Ms. Lepule, likewise for you. Thank you. I'm going with Mr. Kabir.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to two things. Ms. McGlynn, that was just on. Again, it sounds like there's excuses, man. You know, I know that if you not prepared to talk about budget, then you shouldn't raise infrastructure budget in this discussion. However, that
Your
is
question, Mr. Kabir, your follow-up question.
There's no hesitation in transporting learners. Clearly, that is part of the department's policy. So why are we not, in terms of looking for land, using existing land that is at Rondebosch Boys High, Wynberg Boys High, South African Christian schools, which is known as SACS, and all the other schools in those leafy suburbs? Because you don't need to look for land in the noon. You clearly have no issue transporting students from one end of the province or one end of the city to the other. And instead of building dilapidated or schools or temporary schools in
your
the
questions,
noon,
otherwise I'm muting your question.
That is my question. That is my question. Why are they not using existing land at schools that are state or public schools like SACS and Wynberg High or Wynberg Boys High? And then also, Mr. Mayor, again, the schools that I'm referring to that was underutilized are not the classrooms in Bonteheuwel. They are the classrooms at the Grove Primary, at SACS, at Rustenburg and St. Susie. So can you please just explain why you refer to those schools in Bonteheuwel and they are underutilized classrooms in the schools I just mentioned? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kabir. Ms. Lepule.
No follow-up questions, Chairperson. Thank you.
Okay, then please lower your hand because your hand were raised.
Oh, my apologies.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. I acknowledge the question of Mr. Kabir. The classrooms that I refer to are classrooms that are empty, where they have no learners in them currently and standing vacant. The issue of underutilized classrooms, as Mr. Kabir puts it, is something that I would like to also have an opportunity to go and look into for myself. What I do understand is that when we calculate a school's capacity in terms of the school saying, how many learners they have, and we staff them according to those numbers, that schools, then have the prerogative, or governing bodies have the prerogative to appoint governing body posts at the school. And therefore, classes are then reduced because the school is also employing educators that then reduces the number of learners in a particular class and is accommodated in a facility at the school. That is, I think, what Mr. Khabir is speaking about. And it's something that I will look into in the schools that he has indicated and see whether that is in actual fact so, because currently we provided them with teachers in terms of learner numbers that they have, also in terms of facilities that they have at these schools. Thank you. Perhaps Mr. McLean can speak about the other parts of infrastructure. Thanks.
Ms. McLean, do you want to take a last bite at this cherry?
Yes, I just want to say that the transport policy is not to transport learners. We do not have a policy to transport learners in the metro. It's a rural transport policy where there is no means where there's no other transport available for learners. That's what the transport, it does not cover transporting learners to other suburbs to build schools. And so that is not part of the policy of the department currently, and that is why we are not considering those options. The other thing to note is that that schools, all schools in affluent areas and in poorer areas, are allocated a piece of land. Many schools have land which they are not using. And schools have to agree to dispose of that land and return it to the department. So that must also be considered. There's a process that needs to be followed. It's not the department's land. The school is allocated the land that it uses. So it's not free for the department to use. It's allocated to schools. All of the land that the school utilizes is allocated to the school. So those are just 2 points that must be noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I want to say thank you to the department for the presentations. And I also want to say to the members and the department and our journalist who has posed a question and a member of the public who has posed a question. Thanks for the interaction with the Western Cape Education Department today. I want to ask Ms. Singh, are you still on the platform?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Okay. Ms. Singh, on behalf of the Standing Committee of Education within the WCED, within the WCPP, I want to say thank you very much for your contribution and support to the Western Cape matriculants for over the past few years and the systems that you have put in place for the matric external exams that goes and runs smoothly within the department. And I want to wish you well on your retirement, ma'am. And I want to say again on behalf of the Standing Committee, thank you, thank you, thank you for the contribution that you have made to education and especially to classes of matrics throughout the years that you have served. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It is much appreciated, and I will always have education in my heart and in my head. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. With that said, I want to again say thank you to the department, and it is now time for me to say goodbye to you from this platform. Please be safe out there.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank
you,
you,
Chair.
Thank you,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kabir. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Members, if you can stay behind for us to conclude on our administrative tasks. Thank you. Wasima, are we good to go?
Yes, Chair, we can start with the recommendations on the members.
Okay, members, any recommendations on today's presentation? Member Christians, I note you.
Thank you, Chair. It's just, you know, I asked a specific question. It is the Florida High School that from this year in Ravensmead, that there's no, they do not offer maths and science, and children must now go to alternative schools. Mr. Mayor said it's not the case. If we can just find out what is happening at Florida High School, that is the school that I've mentioned. People as an uproar in Ravensmead because of that. That's the first thing. The second thing is that I know he said, but I would want to, I don't know, Chair, how you feel, but I would want those more than 6,000 learners to at least.
We lost you. We lost you, Mr. Christian.
Hello, I'm in the office, so I don't know what's happening.
We hear you bits and pieces now.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
We
Hello?
hear you a bit better. We hear you a bit better.
Okay, no, I've got a...
Member Christians?
Yes. Hello, no, I don't know. This is the...
You're bad.
I'm at the office and I don't know what's happening.
Chair?
Chairperson, we can hear Member Christian.
It might be you, Chair.
We hear you in bits and pieces, not full sentences.
No, Chair, they said you. They can hear me. They said your connection.
Siraj, can we assist Member Christians, please?
No, it's your connection, Chair.
Is it mine?
It's yours.
Are you hearing me in bits and pieces?
Yeah, your connection.
We hear you in bits and pieces also from my side.
No, then IT must assist me because I don't know what's happening.
Because I'm at the office. I'm at the office, so I'm fine. Yeah.
Continue.
Okay.
We hear you. I hear you.
Thank you, Chair. Although we've asked the question, but I want to know from our side, I think as a committee will agree with me, the 6,000, more than 6,000 learners, we at least want to know that they're going to be placed. Those who are waiting for placement. So I don't know what the department do, but we need those learners to be placed. That question, and then maybe the last one is, I want to know, Chairperson, that there's certain areas, and I'm just referring to Mitchell's Plain, but there's other areas as well, where pupils were deregistered, and not the protocol was not followed to have those learners. Now I know that what the regulations say, 3 days, you must let them know 10 days they are registered. But parents are telling me that they were not communicated to. So can we please investigate that proper protocols were followed when pupils were deregistered and now they must go back on the waiting list, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Kama.
Thank you, Chair. I think that mine it's more like a request for information. But the first one, Chair, is if we can get, in terms of the school improvement plan, if we can get a list of the 49 schools of 2020, and in that list, if we get the quintiles of the schools and the teacher-learner ratio per school, that's one. The second one, Chair, if the department can conduct an assessment and give the committee a report on schools or high schools that cancelled maths and physics in the province, say since 2017. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Member Syed.
Thank you, Chair. I was just getting my mic on. I just want to get to my notes. Okay, here we go. Chair, I wanted to know, as a resolution, can we also move that the department develops a system wherein which they collate the data on the dropout rate from grade 1 to grade 12? And if we can get that, the dropout rate from grade 1 to 12, then also to request the department to give the committee a report of the, no, okay, no, that's fine. That's covered in my first recommendation. Okay, can we also get a the details of the schools that obtained a pass rate of below 60% in each year since 2016, including the quintile rankings and the districts? Then, Chair, on the next slide, in terms of school readiness, I'm just looking at what I've got written down here. Okay. In terms of resolutions, can the department give us details of learner population growth in each of the education districts in each year since 2009, and the number of new schools that were built in the province during the same period? And then, okay, that's fine in that regard. Thank you, Chair. I think I'm covered.
Thank you very much, Member Bosman. Member Kama, lower your hand.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'm not sure if my request is a bit far-fetched, but I'm just thinking strategically, because we have the same conversation every year. Is it possible for this committee to ask the Parliamentary Research Department to commission an in-depth research report into the causes and impact of learner migration into the Western Cape? Specifically, if they can do an analysis on the impact of infrastructure planning, teacher and support staff resources, as well as the impact on teaching and learning, specifically in reference to, we now have those, number that I heard today was just over 17,000 learners who came into the province and applied late. So if we could get that done by Parliament as a report of this committee, and if they could look at what impact greater public-private partnerships with education would have on alleviating this problem, and specifically looking at the impact of the collaboration schools project that was presented to us sometime last year. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. That is the list of recommendations. I also just wanted to add that extra or additional 6,012 learners that now need learner transport, a breakdown of the districts where they come from and the schools, please. Wasima, were you able to capture it all? Member Syed and Bosman's hand is still raised. Is that in addition to?
No, Chair, I'm struggling to find the icon to get my hand lower. It's just suddenly vanished from that screen.
Oh, all right. Get an X.
Chair, I'm covered. I've got most of it. Whatever I'll put into wording from the audio as well, Chair. But I've got covered 11 recommendations in total.
All right. Thank you very much. Now we move on to the minutes of Friday the 27th of November, or shall we do the first ones? Shall we do the 2nd of February first? And Member Bosman, you were so kind that day to stand in as the chairperson, so I'm giving over to you. I was not present.
Thank you, Chairperson. It was probably the shortest meeting in the history of this committee. So I'm now tabling the minutes of the meeting we held on the 2nd of Feb 2021 at 11, and page 1 contains attendance. If members can please check and propose any amendments. I hear none, so if we move to page 2. And then the last page, I think, is just the meat of the meeting. May I ask those members who are present if we can have a seconder, a proposer and a seconder for these minutes?
I would propose that we accept and adopt. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Member Allen.
A seconder?
May we have a seconder from Member Syed or Member Kama, I think Member Christians as well?
Yes, the second.
Thank you very much. So the minutes is then duly adopted, proposed by Member Allen and seconded by Member Syed. Chair, I hand back to you.
Thank you very much. We move to the minutes dated the 27th of November. Wasima, are you flighting? I'm so sorry. Apologies.
The 17th first or the 27th?
27th. What do you have? 17th? We'll go with 17th. Fine.
17th.
Page 1. Page 1, members, and note your attendance or your apologies that it is correct. In tabling this minutes dated for the 17th of November. Members, page 2. And then the information requested and the resolution there too on page 2. And then page 3 is just the signature of the chair. Members, if that is a correct, if that is the correct, how do I say this? Recording of the meeting, may I request for a proposer and a seconder? Sorry, I've got something stuck in my throat.
Chairperson, I propose that we move the minutes for adoption, that we adopt the minutes.
We have a proposer.
Seconded.
We have a seconded. Who is that? Member Allen.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can we go to minutes of the 27th of the same month? Members, please check on page 1 your attendance and if you have rendered an apology that it is recorded correctly. And then page 2, that recording is correct. And if you find that it is correct, may I then ask for a proposer and a seconder to adopt these minutes?
I move that we adopt.
Member Allen is the proposer to adopt. Can we have a seconder for that proposal?
I second, Chair.
Member Bosman, thank you very much. That draft minutes dated for the 27th is then duly adopted. Are we moving then to the report of our visit week conducted in the Eden and Central Karoo district? Members, I trust that you have gone through this report. I am therefore then tabling this report and I am on page 1. Please note your attendance or apologies if you have rendered, the purpose of the meeting, the overview for the meeting. I'm moving on to page 2, the key aspects of our visit to the first school and the second one. And then also our key aspects to the walkabout of the schools that we have visited, the concerns that we have raised, starts at the bottom of page 3. Then there are recommendations on page 4. Then there are information that we have requested from both schools at the bottom of page 4. Then we have gone to the Mandlankosi Secondary School. And then also we have recorded the key aspects of what we have found at that school on page 5. That is recorded at the top part of page 6 as well. Then we have gone on to visit Hoërskool Centraal. And at the bottom of page 6 is the visit to AHA Barnard. That is continued on page 7. And then also the concerns raised by the school. Also, we have looked at and have recorded the recommendations for both Mandlankosi, Hoërskool Centraal, and the Primêre Skool AHA Barnard. And we have requested some information of those schools at the bottom of page 7, which continues at the top of page 8. And we have also recorded our visit to the George Frederiks in Merweville. And we have recorded our key aspects of the visit. At the bottom of page 8, we have visited the Primêre Skool Merweville. And we also recorded, starting on page 8 at the bottom, the key aspects of that visit. And then also we continue to record it on page 9 at the top. And we have recorded our recommendations for George Frederiks School. And then we have gone to Hillcrest. At the bottom of page 9, we have recorded our key aspects for our visitation. We also have recorded at the bottom of page 10 the recommendations that we have put forward in regard to that visit. And also we have requested some information from the WCED in regard to our visits. We have then on page 11 visited the Melkoutfontein Primary School. We have recorded our key aspects pertaining to our visit to that school on page 11. And on page 12, we have recorded our recommendations in regard to that. And then our visit is recorded, our concluding of our visit is recorded on page 12. Members, I take it that you did not read it now, but you have had time to read it. I now shall ask for a proposer and a seconder to adopt this report.
Chairperson.
Yes, Member Bosman.
I propose that we adopt, but I wanted to know if I could ask a question once we've adopted as well.
You can. You can. Just hold on to your question then. We have a proposal by Member Bosman to adopt the report. May I ask for a seconder to that proposal, please? Who were there? Nobody, just Member Bosman and I. Member Allen, Member Christians, Member Brinkhuis, Member Kama.
Hand is raised.
I second.
Member Kama, I don't see your hand raised here. Sorry. Thank you very much, Member Kama. I don't see your hand is raised, but thank you very much for seconding that proposal. Members, then we come to our draft committee program. If you have, oh, sorry, Member Bosman, you wanted to ask the question.
Thank you, Chairperson. I just wanted to ask the high school we visited in Maritzburg. There was a request for information that the school must provide us with the correspondence between the WCED and the school with regards to closing up the showers to make sure that the boys and the girls in those two hostels have some privacy. And I just wanted to find out whether we've received any information from the school or the WCED with regard to that communication.
We have not. Wasima?
Chair, I concur with you. We have not received communication, but I shall also communicate with WCED to send that urgently through.
Can we follow up on that after this meeting?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. Member Bosman, does that suffice to your question?
Baie dankie voorsitter.
Dankie. Nou gaan ons na die komitee se program, the committee's draft program, and I take it, members, that you all have gone through it. Is there anything that we have to move up or a bit down? And also, this is all subjected to what the parliamentary program would look like. As you all are aware, we have received a parliamentary program, and that parliamentary program that we have received ends on 31st of March 2021. So we are not sure as to beyond 31st of March what is happening on the parliamentary program. Any input from you as to pertaining to this draft program? I will take your feedback. The consideration of the Western Cape Third Adjustments Appropriation Bill, that is a given. So that is on the 19th of March, next week, Friday. And then I want to ask in regard to adopting or concluding our report, members, to bring the report, the adoption of our report, to bring it also up to the 19th of March, so that we don't get together on the 24th of March to adopt our report. I note the hands now. I'm taking from my right, Member Bosman, Member Said, and Member Kama. In that order.
Okay, thank you, Chair. I want to agree in principle because I've looked at it. Obviously, we received it yesterday, so the time to study it in depth hasn't been a lot, but I think in principle, I want to agree with the program. It speaks to the issues that we have been raising. I just want to see, and maybe I've missed it, but is there an engagement? Okay, yes, I do see here with the cities. Okay, that's fine. No, then it's fine. Obviously, the exact dates, because I see it's just giving the month. The exact dates we can always work that out once the parliamentary program comes in place and once programming sits and all of those stuff. So yeah, I agree in principle. It's just with the proviso that the exact dates we can then further engage on once we get more clarity into the parliamentary program.
Okay, and your take on the proposal that I have to move the 24th of March into the program of the 19th of March to adopt that report as well on that day. The recommendation.
Yeah, because I see it's a short.
Yes,
it's not a long thing. Yeah, then it's fine. Then that's fine. We can do that. Meeting.
Okay.
Maybe we can start maybe about half an hour early if need be, if we're going to bring that in. But if not, if we think that it's not a lot, we can keep it like
we normally even don't take even that slot, that 45 minutes to do the adoption.
Yeah, I know it's about 10-15 minutes, so it's fine. Thanks, Chair.
All right, Member Bosman.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I just want to bring to the attention of the committee that the Standing Committee on Social Development has resolved to have a workshop to work through some of the strategic aspects of oversight that it wants to focus on in the rest of the parliamentary year. And we've also resolved to invite the Western Cape Commissioner for Children to that workshop. And I might want to propose to the members of this committee that we consider linking the two committees and linking the broader cluster A to maximize time, but also just for strategic alignment, because a lot of what we cover is in this committee. So we are thinking the workshop space at the moment in terms of what social development is thinking is that we do it the last week of our constituency period when we come back after we've now passed the budget. So that's just the proposal that I'd like to float for members of this committee as well, because we do serve on cross portfolios.
Thank you, Member Bosman, and I would agree with that proposal for the Education Standing Committee to have a joint session, strategic session with social development, because I think that also the one would feed into the other one and the one would lay the melee for the other one to thrive. But I also take comments from other members. Member Kama.
Thank you very much, Chair. I firstly, let me say I agree with the suggestion that you were making in terms of the 24th. But also, Chair, I don't know, I just want to hear members and you, Chair. I remember we were planning to have a oversight visits which were later cancelled, if I'm correct, due to, of course, the regulations. I was wondering, Chair, because I'm worried about the situation in Mbegweni, especially with reference to Desmond Bilotutu High School, which currently has, it's supposed to take about 1.5 learners, and it currently stands at 1,821 learners, and they have 45 teachers, and from what I got from the principal is that they had about 300 learners that are looking for placement, which they have sent to the circuit, and they have not yet been captured in this report that we were given today. So I was wondering, Chair, I don't know in terms of the planning and whatnot that needs to happen before such a visit is conducted. So I was wondering if there's any possibility, Chair, of using that morning space of the 24th to just visit that one school as part of us visiting the schools to check the readiness, because of COVID we couldn't have done that, and in the program there's nothing that suggests to that. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much. Wasima.
Sorry, Chair, the connection is failing me. I think the shared document just went. I just need to bring to members' attention regarding the budget of the 19th. There are two parts that are happening. That's the third adjustment. That's why we will be starting at 8 o'clock. And then the budget for the new financial year. So just take that into consideration for next week.
Thank you very much, Wasima. Members Bosman and Syed's hands are still up. Is that in addition to?
No, Chairperson, my hand needs to be cut off with an axe. Sorry, it was a mistake.
Yeah, Chair, mine is not going to be cut
use
off.
the same axe for Member Syed, please.
Yeah, you can use the same one, but mine, I just want on Member Kama's proposal. I want to support it in principle, but I just think they look that time slot. I'm looking now. That date you're going to be having back-to-back meetings of different committees. So it may be that some of us who only serve on this committee will be available, but you'll probably need to just check with the other members in terms of their availability, you know.
Can we leave that proposal in the capable hands of our procedural officer to come back to us?
Okay.
I note that her hand is also up. Maybe she wanted to speak to that, Wasima?
Chair, yes, I wanted to speak to that because the program does have other committees also adopting the same time as us. So that might be a little bit awkward to have it. and we might not have the full complement or all the permanent members or the members that want to attend at that.
Okay. So in regard to adopting our draft committee program, can we then adopt with the amendment from the 24th to the 19th? And then also in regard to member Karma's proposal for Wasima to look into that. Anybody there?
Yes, Chair, we can adopt.
Thank you very much, Member Christians.
Chairperson?
Member Christian, yes?
Are we also including a decision on whether the committee would like to form part of the workshop so that we can include the chair and the procedural officer in the planning as well?
Yes, I think that we are saying that, members. I'm just checking with you, Member Christians, because I said it is a great idea. Member Christians, are you all for it?
Yeah, Chair, I'm for it. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Member Brunkhuis? Member Brunkhuis?
Yes, I'm for it, Chair. 100%.
Thank you. Member Allen?
Chair.
Member Allen?
All good, my side, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Said?
All good.
Thank you, Member Karma. I see your hand coming up now.
Yes, I am, Chair.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that amendments, Member Christians proposes that we adopt with amendments. Can we have a seconder for that? Members?
I'll second it, Chairperson. Sorry, it's very difficult to find the new buttons on Microsoft Teams.
For the hand. Thank you very much. So we adopting our draft committee program with amendments. Members Christian proposing and Member Bosman seconding. Members, we are about 4 minutes beyond our time, but we have come to the end of our session for today. I want to say thank you to Wasima for her assistance and making and logistical arrangements in making this happen, for Ben Daza, who has supported her as a senior, and then also for Siraj for assisting us in regard to making this happen on this platform. And then members, as a committee, all the members, I want to say thank you very much in your support for me when I needed it. It is much appreciated. Thank you. With that said, I now declare that the Standing Committee meeting for today, the 11th of March, is now adjourned. Thanks, go well and be safe.